Hello and welcome. I'm Uday Pratap Singh. Thanks for joining us on a brand new episode of the NewsX Business World Economy Series. We're decoding the Indian economy. We're looking at how India is going to become AATMANIRBHAR Bharat, which the Prime Minister has spoken about. How much of the government stimulus has actually aided corporate India? What else the government can still do? And how we can once again come back on the path of high GDP growth and, of course, the race to become a superpower in this world, in this new world order that we'll be developing in the post-COVID era. I'm Uday Pratap Singh. Welcome to the show, and we have with us a power-packed panel as always. Anuj Puri is joining us today. He's chairman of AATMANIRBHAR Property Consultants Private Limited. We also have Dr. Sandeep Goyal with us, Chairman Moge Media. Srinath Sridharan, Independent Strategic Counsel and Markets Commentator, is also with us. Krishna Kumar Karwa, Managing Director of MK Global Financial Services, joins the panel. Sakshi Talwar with us. She's an entrepreneur, writer, and an artist. She's also co-founder of Rugs and Beyond. And we have Dr. Anurag Batra, Chairman and Editor-in-Chief, Businessworld and Exchange for Media Group, also joining the panel as always. Welcome all of you. Thank you so much for being with us. Anuj Puri, let me begin with you first on the direct impact that the pandemic and lockdown has had on your sector in the last 2-3 months. Also, how much has the government stimulus actually aided corporate India and companies' recovery?
So, thank you very much, Uday, for having me, and delight to be on the same panel with Dr. Batra. I'm very fond of him in the right way. I think Uday, the government is trying to do whatever they are given the pandemic situation. Clearly in your opening remarks, I love the way that you say is that the world order is changing. If India, really behaves itself well, and we are able to control this pandemic, then, we can come out quite a winner. In my opinion, whatever the stimulus has been done, we're still not a rich country. Let's recognize that. We compare ourselves with, US has done 3 trillion and another trillion coming in on the infrastructure side. We're like a $3 trillion economy. It's very difficult for us to compete. And what I understand is the moment you start to produce a lot of the currency, we get into a negative rating and perhaps get into a rating which may not be acceptable internationally. So I think it is what it is as a stimulus. This country is built on entrepreneurs. We will have to really pick up the sticks and start to go and rebuild it. I think the question is, what can the government initiatives do? I would say is probably 3 or 4 things. Little bit connected with real estate, but beyond real estate. One is on the infrastructure. If they can expedite the building of that infrastructure, that really helps the real estate. Second is there is a lot of demand, Uday, and I tell you is that to my mind, this can change India's ranking. What I'm now going to say on that is the huge amount of demand coming in from the American manufacturing companies who are looking to make India as an alternate base to China for their manufacturing outsourcing. If India gets it act right, and when I say act right, I think it has to be from center to state to the municipality to right up to the local bodies level. We get it all right, we will be able to attract a lot of the manufacturing. And then I would say 2 other things is if they can accelerate the divestment, that does help in bring in more money. And clearly on the real estate side, it is the demand. Ultimately, what is it that we need to do? What can the government do? Can it bring down the taxes? Can it, help in bringing down the GST, the stamp duties, the premiums that they're charging? And frankly, there have been discussions that have been going on at this moment in time. Ultimately, you need to prop up the demand if you have to kickstart the real estate sector.
Mr. Puri, just to come in, you also been saying that millennials will drive the demand for residential because for the first time, they will possibly want to have a home of their own from which they operate. So tell us numbers from the last 2-3 months that support this argument that you've been sharing.
So Anurag, it is, I mean, I don't know what is happening beneath the surface, because for the first time, we are seeing the early 30 guys doing site visits. They were always the guys, young couple who was very happy leasing it, and they lived on an economy which was more rental, whether it was not having their own cars or, accommodation. Clearly there is something that has gone on the mind in these 3-4 months. That may be insecurity of a calamity like this one, where the couples are saying, go back to the basics. Anurag, you would remember it's roti kapda or makan. Somewhere that makan definition had got intertwined with different aspirations. I think it is at some stage getting back to the basics. So we're seeing the site visits clearly where first-time home buyers are coming in. Second, we are seeing is that these home buyers are extremely serious. I mean, the conversion rates of site visits is very high to doing a deal is. Third is that the home loan rate of interest, Anurag, is the lowest in 14 years. The last we had seen this was 2006. And maybe that is what is prompting them. Maybe their parents are prompting them to say, look, every time you have invested in the stock market, look what has happened to the stock market. At least you would have had a real asset that would have help you. And what our survey has showed is, Anurag, that many building societies have differentiated between a tenant versus a flat owner himself or herself. The societies have had different rules. For the tenant, it was a much stricter rule than for the flat owner in the same building society. As a result of which, many of these tenants have said is that, look, I really want to go out and buy. And the demand is for ready to move in inventory. They want, like, tomorrow morning, I want to get in and buy and, do the deal.
So those are some emerging trends which we are going to be
conversion there, but
okay. Let's bring in Sandeep Goel. At this point. Sandeep Goel, come in here on your, of course, initial assessment of what the government has done so far, the stimulus, but also, sir, specifically for advertising. How are we going to see a renewed demand once again? What needs to be done? What breaks are needed for this sector to pick up and for companies to begin advertising again?
Anuj talked at a far more macro level, and he talked of regeneration of demand at a national level and how the economy can be moved forward. In my 35 years of being in advertising, I figured that maybe the funnel needs to go the wrong way up. If you don't start at the basics and at the micro level, it just doesn't impact the macro level at times. Now I am going to actually table a slightly different perspective. In our very many years of going to clients, I would meet two types of clients. One who would look at you in the eye and say, which other clients have done this, which means I'm looking for comfort that, another dozen guys have done it. If I also do it and go wrong, then at least I can blame the system. 1 in 10 clients, maybe sometimes 1 in 100 clients would turn around and say, I hope nobody else has done this, right? So I'll be the first guy to do it. Now, this is the time when you require this second type of clients to actually wake up and do things which others are not doing. Because fact of the matter is that the others are really doing nothing. So, if the few guys who need to lead the way don't actually stand up and start to do some new things, the action at the micro level will be nearly zero. As I see it, at least over the last, few weeks, despite the unlock and everything, there is no significant activity from any of the brands. I was talking to this one very large e-commerce, player who's invested a significant amount of money in this country, and the guys from the US were on the line, and we were having a chat. So I asked him, I said, why are you not holding, say, your, whatever is the equivalent of your $1 billion or billion rupee sale or whatever, at this point of time? So he says, I don't know whether there is enough demand. Now, this is a chicken and egg story, if there is not enough demand, so I won't have the sale. And because there is no sale, there will be no demand. So I think you're looking to create demand by first getting a lot of micro level initiatives to start working. So in my belief, I don't think very many of either the clients or the ad agencies or the brands have actually woken up. They're still in some kind of state of hiatus, waiting for somebody else to act first. And that acting first, which means either the leader in the category, or it means that, somebody else in a related line of business should first act We should see how much they succeed or how much they fail, and then we will figure out whether we should get started or not. Now, if everybody keeps looking at the other guy, I don't think this is going to get going.
Okay, Dr. Batra?
Sandeep, I want to ask you, so hence, what can be done by the government and to kind of help these entrepreneurs to take the micro steps that you're talking of?
Of course, I don't know. I don't think the government has any significant role to play in, at least fanning demand at the advertising and, brand level. That is an initiative I think each individual company, every corporate, every brand has to actually handle on their own. They have to look at the realities of their own markets. They have to look at the reality of their, customers. They have to look at, what exactly is it that they anticipate will right now sell in this kind of atmosphere. And I don't think there is any governmental role, so to say, at this stage. I mean, there's nothing that the government can do to kind of stimulate demand if brands themselves don't get active. My point is, if you don't see enough advertising on television, there is going to be no stimulus for buying. So if everyone keeps delaying the start of their campaigns or keep looking at someone else to see, if the category, quote unquote, is starting to advertise or not, then there will be no action.
Okay. We come back to you on demand and how to get the consumer sentiment up. But Srinath, you write a lot on economy and you come from the financial services sector. Now, one of the biggest issues in the economy is that the lack of liquidity at all levels. So tell us, how can that liquidity be brought back? Can it be brought back immediately? And if yes, how?
So thanks, Anurag. I think before liquidity, I think it is more a crisis of confidence. This crisis of COVID is a crisis of confidence, public confidence on a couple of aspects. One, definitely personal safety, family welfare, and more importantly, income generation aspect. Whether you're an entrepreneur or an employee, you're worried whether you're going to have the ability to continue generating that income. So which means you reposition your needs and wants, and all this boils down to self-preservation. So where does liquidity come in here? End of the day, the fiscal stimulus that the government announced can probably drive the government expenditure into some of those sectors. But the fact is, as Sandeep rightly said, if the private sector or the industries do not participate in that entire aspect, there's no way that, let's say, the demand is going to be generated. If you look at, let's say, a classic case of Mumbai, most of us use the word called migrant. And I think that's a very derogatory term by itself. How would we like, most of us in Delhi or Bombay are migrants, either this generation or the previous generation. We would like to be called probably what I use the phrase as non-domiciled workforce. Whether you're skilled or unskilled, educated or uneducated, the fact is we're all non-domiciled. We're born somewhere, educated or grew up somewhere, which means our domicile is somewhere else. So I think if we get that perspective, I have a worry that most of our cities are devoid of this non-domiciled workforce because they've gone back. So how will that city regenerate itself and function? I think very classic case. I think, can we offer dignity? Here, if I were to tie up with what Anuj said, our civic infrastructure. I don't know whether to even call it an infrastructure. I think the word will be ashamed. I think our civic infrastructure, be it roads or the hospitals or the schools, the municipal schools, everything actually are not offering dignity to any of its users. I'm not even getting into any of the controversies of various hospital sites that we have seen. Can we actually use this crisis to build civic infrastructure that we can be proud of? All our conversation in comparison with China or third world countries or competing for that capital to come to India, we must actually showcase that we will be able to use that capital and create quality infrastructure. Otherwise, why is that capital going to come to India? Let's face it, the last 20 years, capital came to India because there was consumption. So if we cannot actually demonstrate consumption, that capital is not going to come to us. So liquidity, I think, in a nutshell, is always dependent on confidence. If today, for example, Anurag says, give me 100 rupees, the point is, if Anurag says, and I know him, I will give him even 1,000 rupees. But if Anurag calls up and says, hey, I'm desperate, can I get 10 bucks? You may not even get 1 rupee. So it's always about that confidence. And yes, there is this chicken and egg between the banking system, the government, and the players. And I think Krishnaji would be able to add more micro aspect there. The fact is, there has been a sign of crisis the last many years. Indian debt markets don't exist. It's so shallow that I think we must somehow build that confidence to revive that.
Thank you. Srinath, we'll come back to you.
Just a quick follow-up, actually, before we move on. Mr. Sridharan, you spoke, of course, about the non-domicile workforce, and let's use that term. That's a good point you raised. But how will we actually get them back to big cities once again? How will we get them back to the factories where they were working in once again? What kind of time frame are we looking at for that to happen? Or if they don't, then is it also time perhaps for local employment, for state governments also, and other companies to relook at this big city employment for them? Perhaps a go vocal for local also must mean local employment for them in their origin home states, so that they don't have to migrate in the first place.
So let me break it up into two aspects, short term and long term. Long term, human need for more will always be around, which means I want a bigger house, I want to go to a bigger city, I want to make more money. That need of human beings will be there. Short term is about self-preservation, which means am I comfortable in my small village, small town? Because my needs have shrunk now. I can live in a small village for less than 2,000 rupees a month. But the fact is, if I were to live even in a slum in Mumbai, I would need about 10,000 rupees. And the fact is, the only way we can probably get them back is offer dignity. I mean, the National Urban Housing Plan 2015 spoke about the concept of affordable social rental housing. And we've somewhere missed that boat. I mean, what is the incentive for an investor in India to go and create rental housing? There's none. So where is that? I mean, the government alone cannot do that. So we will have to devise ways and means to use all the encroached land that the government has and actually create affordable housing. Otherwise, why would somebody in Mumbai travel 2 hours by train one way to earn 10,000 rupees a month? And I think some of those is what I call as dignity. I mean, he or she would live beyond Vasai Virar, where there's no hospital, no water connection, no sewage. So which means they cannot bring in their family. There's no school or hospital. Let's offer dignity. And I think the concept of affordable rental housing has to come back, not just about owning affordable housing. And that's where we have missed the boat in the last few years of talking about PMAY. We have forgotten that there is something called rental housing.
Thank you, Srinath. What you are saying is essentially three things. You're saying, one, the government must get the confidence back. Second, get basics right, which means get health infrastructure right, do more testing right now. If you did that and brought back the confidence, economic activity will come back, and hopefully some of the things will sort it out. And third, you talked about implementing policies that have been announced and making sure that there is an incentive. So we'll come back to you. Krishna, there is almost 1,10,000 crores that Jio has raised in the last 45 days. Now that will come into the economy. That's a good sign for the economy. Do you think that money will trickle down and actually bring liquidity? Because Reliance will spend on acquisitions, Reliance will spend on another level of infrastructure. Some part it will use to retire debt, but some part, let's say even if 25% comes, it will be substantial to create some liquidity. What is your view?
A good question, Anurag. Thanks here. See, before we come to Jio, you look at in the last few months, the number of blocks which have happened. You have had a 25,000 crores of HUL sales which happened. You had HDFC Life, you had HDFC Mutual Fund. So you had Bharti placement happening. So what's happening is that the amount of liquidity which is there in the global ecosystem, it is all about our capability to attract our share of that liquidity. That in the last few months, that wherever good placement, good offerings have come, they have been lapped up by the FPIs. And so is the case with Jio as a Jio platform. I think it was a very good investment opportunity, and we have already seen commitments of almost 1,50,000 crores. So the thing today is that there is huge amount of global liquidity. We need to get a big ecosystem in terms of capital, land, and labor laws, etc., to be able to attract equity inflows as well as even debt inflows. I think the government should make the effort to get our sovereign bonds and sovereign G-Secs, etc., included in the global debt indices. If they do that, we can easily attract $15–20 billion of debt inflows into the country. That is the key thing that we need to focus on, to be focusing upon. that this is an opportunity where there is so much of liquidity, there is an opportunity about attracting supply chains to India. Also, I'd like to share with you is that if you look at some data points, like e-GST bills for the month of June, they are almost at 80% interstate as well as intrastate versus June last year. Now, this is a clear-cut indicator that the economy has started moving. Are part of the urban infrastructure. We are in Mumbai, and there is a lockdown, etc., or semi-lockdown, whatever. So we may not feel the activity, but the statistics, which is the e-GST bills, that's a clear-cut statistic that the economy is on a month-on-month, on a YOY month basis, it is at 80%. You look at some of the other statistics. Cement companies, they are seeing sales like nobody's business as far as rural India is concerned. Realizations are again very good. So where is that demand? I think the rural part of the economy seems to has come back very fast. I think a benefit of the very good harvesting, etc., that they had earlier. You see agrochemical companies, you see tractor companies, everybody seems to be in a positive frame of mind.
Yeah.
Sense is that the rural part of the economy is already made a comeback and it will deliver. The challenge is in the urban part of the economy. And also there, the infrastructure issue which Anuj mentioned and Sridharan mentioned, that is going to be a challenge in terms of how are we going to attract what we call non-domiciled workers back. If construction activity doesn't restart in cities like Mumbai or Chennai, etc., how are those projects going to get completed? How are small units going to start working? So, important today is to get the economy moving back in cities is going to be the service sector. You can't be running a city without your entertainment, your hospitality not going on. That's where the major people work. Years, I think the rural India, I think.
Is it no? But what explains that? That's an interesting point you raised. What explains that? Is it because the COVID spread happened late in rural areas? It affected urban areas first. Is it because government spending has been a lot for the rural sector through Manrega and through through agriculture spending? Is it because a lot of bulk of our population still is our agriculturists at heart that contributes a lot to our economy? What's the reason?
My sense is that, see, if you look at it, our cities are very, very congested. 30-40% of the people, maybe 50% live in slums. Versus if you go to rural India, at least that challenge is not there. You may be living in dilapidated or weak infrastructure, but at least that congestion is not there. So I think that is the first reason I believe that why the cities are more impacted versus the interiors. Now I think the rural India, as people have moved back, etc., but I think they have contained it reasonably well. Overall, if you look at it, I think the scene is much better. That's my take.
Krishna, we'll come back to you again. And I want to bring in Sakshi here. Sakshi, one of the real worry is that over the last 90 days, startups have seen zero revenue or close to zero revenue, depending on what sector you're in. And also their funding, or they were expecting funding hasn't come. So there is a real fear that in the next 60 to 120 days, we'll see 70% of the startups folding up. As an entrepreneur, what do you have to say to that?
So thank you for having me here. As we all know, the COVID has impacted more than 6 million people worldwide, and 400,000 people have died across the world. And it has also created a huge economic disruption. And as far as startups are concerned, of course, revenue is a problem, and 70% of the startups are facing a lot of challenges. And with that being said, I feel that one just kind of has to probably pivot their business model and also seek some sort of assistance from other financial institutions. Of course, right now we all are sailing in the same boat, but at the same time, we probably just have to find different sustainable, models in order to sustain ourselves. And for example, we are in the textile industry. We make handmade carpets and rugs. That has been severely impacted. Absolutely. The craftsmen and weavers, they're literally like without work. A lot of export orders, whether it's in US, whether it's in Europe, that has been cancelled. A lot of, people are unemployed at the same time. So I just feel that creating different sustainable ways in order to sustain yourself, that is number one. And secondly, also build up on your infrastructure, leverage on that, because I feel that things are not going to change in the next 6 months to 1 year. It will be pretty much the same. But as long as people can find themselves, to support their businesses in some way or the other, I think that should definitely help. And I think, like, for example, for our industry, the weavers and artisans and craftsmen, they are our backbone. And we have been actually, finding ways to support them, because I feel that's extremely crucial. And
so if your business succeeds, their livelihood improves as well. There's a direct correlation.
Absolutely.
Fair enough. Okay.
Absolutely.
We're going to take a very short break. We've heard from all our panelists. After the break, we'll open it up to some larger questions. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned to NewsX.
आपका हक है 100% सेफ पानी पर, इसलिए लाए कैंट आरओ,
क्योंकि कैंट में है डबल प्योरिफिकेशन आरओ और यूवी से।
कैंट देता है सबसे शुद्ध पानी।
Heart to Heart Season 2. Arjun Kapoor.
The mind does not stay calm. It's very difficult to stay honest to this moment all the time.
Heart to Heart Season 2 with Gurudev Shri Shri Ravi Shankar.
Presented by Kent RO, जो देता है सबसे शुद्ध पानी। Associate sponsor Ayurveda by ML. Ayurveda for a youthful you.
कैंट आरओ से पानी होता है 100% प्योर
और मिले 4 साल की फ्री सर्विस भी।
कैंट देता है सबसे शुद्ध पानी।
True Shield hand sanitizer. True Shield hand sanitizer, made as per WHO guideline. A product of Piccadilly Agro Industries Limited, kills 99.9% germs and protects you from coronavirus. For sales and inquiries, please contact 999-61-23411. Email trueshield@piccadilly.com, alcoplus@piccadilly.com.
आपका हक है 100% सेफ पानी पर, इसलिए लाए कैंट आरओ,
क्योंकि कैंट में है डबल प्योरिफिकेशन आरओ और यूवी से।
कैंट देता है सबसे शुद्ध पानी।
Welcome back from the break. You're watching this special NewsX Business World program on the Indian economy. We are, of course, speaking to all of our panelists. They've had their opening comments before we took a break. Now we're, of course, opening it up to some larger questions. Before I go straight across to Dr. Batra, Anush Puri, come in here on the real estate sector per se, specifically. Has what the government announced truly impacted you, helped you, or do you believe more needs to be done? And what practically can the government do to help your sector right now? Because we've seen certain state governments offer additional incentives, like UP has offered for further interest waivers and moratoriums and whatnot. But what are you still expecting from the center, and what's the outlook for the real estate sector? You spoke about certain advantages, certain positive points, but overall outlook looking positive. And what's something that you still expect from the government?
And yes, I would like to build on Uday's question. We talk about residential demand. What about commercial demand?
Yeah.
If work from home becomes a reality, will the commercial demand see a dip for the long term? And second, will that dip in demand be offset by the new social distancing norms? So I would like you to address, and how warehousing. If e-commerce grows, will warehousing grow leaps and bounds? We know we're not going to talk about retail. That's very stressed right now. Will 1,75,000 crore lease discount rentals, so LRDs, lease rental discounting. We know that retail is under stress. So give us a view on commercial and warehousing spaces.
Absolutely. So Anurag, I'll cover your and Uday, your question as well in two parts. First, I'll cover Anurag's, and then Uday, it's a part of your question as well. And then I'll cover what the government initiatives can happen. Just very quickly in 60 seconds, which are the sectors that are doing well within real estate? I said is industrial is doing very well. Anurag mentioned warehousing. I mean, it's doing fantastically. Absolute huge amount of demand from lessees. Huge amount of private equity chasing. tons of money wanting to get into that real estate, industrial warehousing sector. And as I said, it is either the manufacturing outsourcing that this equity is really going ahead and saying is India will benefit out of the debacle that China has happened, or whether it is on the retail, a lot of the operators moving on to e-commerce and wanting a lot of these warehousing. In the middle is somewhere residential, which we touched, and I'll touch a little bit on the office. And at the bottom is hospitality, the hotels, and the retail. Many of the locations, retail malls have opened up, Anurag. They opened up this Monday. Many of the retail locations, they've had, I would say...
I'm told that the demand is tepid to be
they've had between 20 to 35% of the footfalls. But that footfall has largely gone to buy essentials, not premium products, not luxury products, or they've largely gone to buy electronics or electrical gadgets, which are broken at home during this lockdown period. But that's where it has largely gone, which really doesn't have the margin in that. So retail, definitely, Anurag, as you rightly said, is suffering at this moment in time. Hospitality is suffering. Somewhere in the middle is the resi and the offices, and the offices have had 2 negative and 1 positive. The 2 negative have been really work from home. This time it does appear it's for real. Many of the companies have made announcements, and clearly when you speak with people, they're saying is we're being very productive, very efficient, and for a very long time we will continue to work from home. Clearly until we get a vaccine, it's going to be difficult for people to bring in the confidence and the encouragement to get them into the office. And second is that if the economy shrinks, real estate, commercial sector does shrink. But as Anurag rightly said, is that social distancing, it used to be 80 square feet per person. Now it's 120 square feet per person. So clearly 50% of the demand of the corporates is looking to go up if they practice the social distancing norms. Now, to your question very quickly, what can the government do? I very much liked, what was mentioned by Mr. Goel, and I think, all the other panelists also said the same thing. I think we have to pick up the sticks. As entrepreneurs, as businesses, we have to really go out and do that. I said in my opening comments, we're not a rich country. We can continue to ask that, these are the things that need to be done. Yes, there are benefits that we require on the taxation, on the ability to have an interest moratorium, on one-time restructuring to be allowed for the Reserve Bank of India. But equally, I would say as entrepreneurs, guys, get up. Let's go out. Let's build up the confidence. Let's start to do work. Many people who we are finding are not doing that. Many entrepreneurs are not doing that. They're very scared to be able to come out. So really, I just think that the government really needs to build a campaign to say, guys, we have to live with it. It's not tomorrow morning there's a vaccine coming in that you will start to then go to the offices. I mean, you have to build that up. A laundry list can be prepared, what the government needs to do in each of these sectors. But I really liked what Mr. Goel's comments were, opening comments, that, guys, just pick up the sticks, get back to work.
True. Okay, Dr. Batra?
I want to bring in Krishna. Krishna, one of the biggest thing is job losses. If you look at today data, we're staring at massive job losses. And if the pandemic lasts a little longer, another 10 days, 15 days, 30 days, 45 days, then we are looking at even more job losses. What do you think can be done to sustain companies and save jobs? And Sandeep, I will ask the same question to you. What can be done to save companies and to sustain jobs?
If you look at the organized sector, clearly I think it has to be all about demand. If demand is there, then obviously things fall into place as far as sustaining the operation, etc. are concerned. But if demand doesn't revive, so currently what we are seeing is that there is a decent amount of pent-up demand which most of the companies are witnessing, are experiencing. The real situation would be known only after 3 months, which is post-September. Once the pent-up demand, etc. is done with, whether the demand sustains. So as far as job losses, as most corporates have taken compensation cuts. So that is the way they are sustaining in terms of, okay, as the demand picks up, we will go back to earlier compensations. So I think more than the job losses, it is about retaining the talent that most corporates are looking at. Because talent is ultimately, it's the human talent which drives the companies. So all smart companies are not looking to do layoffs. They are trying to find a way in between whereby the employees can also sustain and the corporates can also sustain. I think the challenge of job losses, which you mentioned, is more in the MSME sector, where the businesses have limited resources, access to credit is very difficult, and their supply chains, etc., are much more difficult to manage. So that is the segment where the job losses are very high. I think somewhere the government of India will have to recognize that MSMEs, they have recognized, no doubt about it, but that is the segment which is most vulnerable, and MSMEs have to be given all the possible benefits because they have a very high multiplier effect as far as employment is concerned. Organized sector is very, I think they know how to go about it. They have gone through such cycles much more. They have the ability to manage. There, I don't think so there are job losses. It's the MSME sector. But that is the situation as far as job losses are concerned. I think the key trick is as far as the moratoriums end, which is in August. After that, you will come to know the real situation as far as the NPAs, etc., are concerned in the system. Till then, today we are not aware of the extent of damage which has happened as far as the MSME sector is concerned. Today, that is the real situation. So my sense is that also for the organized sector in the last 2-3 months, employees have been working from home, have been paid broadly. Actually, there are more savings that many of these employees are having because they are not spending on anything except working from home.
Yeah.
One of the consumer majors mentioned that there is actually savings which have gone up. Now, whether they come to spend or whether they will retain those savings will be a function of their...
Or maybe buy real estate with it. That's why everybody is smiling.
Is there comfort about the business trajectory itself? So the real trick will be post-September to December, when do we see what is the benefit that we see of all the packages that the government of India has announced. Other part, I think, is that a longer term, I think the packages which have been announced for the agriculture sector in the AATMANIRBHAR package, I think those are phenomenal once they are implemented, whether the Essential Commodities Act or the APMC and the contract farming. If they work out very well on the longer term, then the challenges which we are seeing about migrant labor, that's not the right word to use, but about people coming from rural India to urban India for work. Over a long time, I think it will be a very big positive.
Okay. Srinath Sridharan, why don't you come in here? You spoke about, of course, the non-domicile worker issue earlier. But if we speak about, the adversity as well. Now, it is an adversity. No one can deny that. We are going to be seeing a contraction. How much that will be, let's see. The entire world is going to see it. However, every adversity has some sort of positivity as well. There's opportunity. Which sectors is the opportunity the most for right now? What should be done to cash in on the opportunity available, not just in India, but also in a global context with this anti-China mood present world over as well?
So let's, with the basic statistics, let's remember, while we celebrate what we keep on calling the demographic dividend, it also puts a lot of onus of responsibility on us that we have to employ 600 million Indians for many, many years to come, or we have to find ways. And I think the program called the Skilling India program that the government initiated a couple of years ago, this is a great time to, I think, revive it. And I use the word revive in a positive sense, put all the trust on it, because each of us on the screen needs skilling, upskilling, reskilling. Again, the word skilling somewhere makes us feel, oh, it's for the uneducated rural guy, he needs to skill. I mean, did we, any of us know how to operate internet a couple of years ago? We did not. So let's say the plant and machinery workers in automobile industry, 3D printing, the fourth industrial revolution is the reality today. So how will the automobile industry change? How can we bring farm efficiency? I mean, one of the challenges in agriculture because of fragmented land utilization is we have not used technology at all. Can we bring in agri-tech, which means that can we marry the native intelligence of the farmer and the family and the intelligence of a youngster wanting to do a tech platform? Yes, we can. And then in between, the entire value chain is where we would need financing. And I think I like what Sandeep and Anuj alluded to. One of the things that we are forgetting, and which is what I started with, this crisis is about crisis of confidence. Can we use this to drive patriotic fervor? I mean, India can do it. I mean, I used a phrase called the new economy 2.0 is actually nothing but 2020. This is a chance for us to redesign. I think also our service sector, we have been overrating it too much. We have, let's say in the IT sector, we have actually benefited the last 20 years on labor and cost arbitrage. India as a sector has not shined itself very well in the actual cutting edge consulting space. This is the time to drive that. And this is also, I think, could be a defining moment where our proportion of GDP services contributes over 50%, but employs less than 24% of Indians. Would it rebalance? Probably yes. If we talk about the workforce going back to small villages and towns, and the first question that you ask, can we create more cities with employability options? I think this is doable. A case in point, I think if I were to allude to, let's say, the Delhi-Mumbai industrial corridor, I mean, as it gets constructed over the next few years, can it generate, let's say, 50 new centers of excellence for employability? I think so. I think we have enough opportunities like that.
Thank you, Srinath. Sandeep ji, you've been always thinking out of the box. What is that can be out of the box for the government, for entrepreneurs, and for civil society at large? What can we do? Because there is this debate about lives and livelihood, and it's a real debate. Actually, there shouldn't be a debate between lives and livelihood. It's not an either-or situation. So what can be done to think out of the box and leapfrog?
Dr. Batra, my submission is, again, going back to the point from where I started, that while we are talking about a crisis of livelihood and we are talking of a crisis of, various other things, I think this is really a time where it is more a crisis of innovation. I mean, there's so much that is unprecedented, something that we don't have recourse to past, examples and so on and so forth. I'll give you a very, very small and a very basic example. I mean, we were talking about startups. So I have an investment in a startup, and we got chatting with the guy saying, boss, what are your plans? What are you going to do now? Whatever you are manufacturing doesn't seem to have any kind of immediate demand. So I suggested to him, I said, everybody is talking about the fact that there are 800 million to 1 billion mobile phones, and the maximum amount of infection that you can expect from people going out is actually on that mobile that you're carrying all day. I mean, you go and wash your hands, but you don't go and wash your mobile. So what is the simplest device to now disinfect a phone? Because that's 1 billion devices. So if you create something that can service 1 billion devices, you got a business. So I actually went, on the net, and I found for him a dozen devices which disinfect by using UV rays. Right? Now, I went to just the sites in Dubai. So noon.com or souk.com had 2,500 products where you could take your mobile, put it into a lunchbox type of a, small UV box, and, in an hour you have a disinfected phone in your hand. Now, you do the same exercise on Amazon here, on Flipkart here, there are 5 devices.
Yeah.
Which means somewhere down the line, despite the fact that there is a huge opportunity available, we don't want to rise to create solutions for what are existing problems. Forget, generation of new demand. Fact of the matter is, everybody wants to disinfect something or the other right now. So if disinfection in itself is, say, an industry, we are not even being able to rise to the bait of that opportunity. So, it's very, very fashionable to get into most of these debates, and we keep talking about the government. I don't think government has solutions for everything. They've got their hands full of, looking after healthcare. They've got their, hands full.
No, that's a very valid point. That's a very valid sentiment that you've put out today. And let me tell you, Sandeep Goyal, we have been raising that on multiple programs that me and Dr. Batra have been doing. We've raised this point that entrepreneurs need to innovate. They've always succeeded and innovated, not because of the government, but in spite of the government. And this is this time is no different. Why don't you react to that, Sakshi? Is this a time for innovation of entrepreneurs like yourself?
Yes.
Is digital the buzzword for entrepreneurs?
Absolutely. I believe that for every problem, there is an opportunity, and there's no better time to innovate than now. And it's very important for entrepreneurs to kind of pivot their business model, as I mentioned earlier as well, and come up with newfangled ideas. And I feel that as far as MSMEs are concerned, they are definitely the backbone of the country. There are more than 67 million MSMEs, and I feel that the government should definitely provide waivers at the same time, and probably provide omni-channels to sell their products. E-commerce is definitely the way to go. But as far as startups are concerned, of course, innovation is of prime importance, because if you're going to slack and if you're not going to move with the times, obviously the next person will probably build something better. So I definitely think that innovation is definitely the way to go during this crisis.
Okay, okay. Let's begin our closing closing rapid fire on the the state of the economy.
I'll start with Sakshi here. We came to you last. Sakshi, where do you see the demand and economy being in the next 90 to 120 days, 3 to 4 months? Will it be in a good shape? Will it be worse? Where will it be?
I feel that it definitely depends from industry to industry. I mean, as far as travel and hospitality is concerned, that will definitely, we all know it's taken a hit.
That's not coming back soon.
Right. It's not coming back anytime soon. People definitely have FOMO, like they say, fear of going out. They don't want to step out, and it will take a while for them to regain confidence in order to travel and go out to eat to restaurants and all of that. However, as far as other industries are concerned, whether they're MSMEs or whether they're startups, whether it's in apparel or textiles or anything else, I feel that if entrepreneurs innovate, and if they actually, don't give up, and not just feel, bogged down by this whole thing, which of course we all do, considering, there's a global pandemic that is going on. So I feel innovation, as long as innovation and creativity is intact, I definitely see that there could be some sort of, hope in the next 4 to 6 months for entrepreneurs to bounce back and take everything, by the horns and keep moving. Definitely.
Krishna, I'm asking, will the economy be better in 3 to 4 months, or it'll be worse? I want a direct answer.
So my sense is that things are improving, subject to a second round.
My sense is they will get a little bit worse before they improve. So I actually believe July, August, like you said, the data is still not out. I believe July, August will see the real impact of what has happened in the last 90 days.
So what you said in 90 to 120 days, my sense is that things will start improving, is my take. As we said also, that it is all about human ingenuity and innovations. I think Indians as an entrepreneur class, when they are back to the wall, they come back with a vengeance. Don't undermine the Indian entrepreneur, and as rightly one of the panelists also said, that it is instead of the government, whatever they do or they don't do, Indians will come back, and our economy will possibly be in a much better shape. All the benefits of all the packages that the government has announced will start trickling in between September to December. Some segments of the economy which will struggle obviously the segments where physical distancing or social distancing is important. But otherwise, I believe that agriculture, that part of the economy, will take us ahead, is my sense.
So I anticipate a couple of pain points the next couple of months, say 3 to 6 months, and only then the new normal. Very simple. I anticipate more retrenchment in corporate India in the services sector. I mean, it is not fashionably, it is not politically right for good brands to sack people now. So while they may take a hit on their balance sheet, the fact is it cannot continue for a longer time. Once the lockdown exit fully happens, some of those retrenchments will happen. Two, also the financial services sector, which is currently under the RBI moratorium, will actually see the pain of whether the collections are going to improve, come back, or whether they will have to provide for more money. And let's face it, capital is not infinite for Indian financial services. It always struggle for that. And the bulk of the real economy financing is always been done by the PSU banks. So are the PSU banks going to go back to the government for recapitalization, let's say 10 months or later in this fiscal? Probably yes, is my anticipation. So I anticipate short-term pain in NPA, short-term pains in job cuts. And I think then the new normal of people wanting to figure out what else to do. And that's where I think there's a scope for entrepreneurship, probably innovation centers, and financing venture capital for the new ideas.
Sandeep, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to give you a yes but answer. Now, the yes but
50,
is
50.
dependent.
50-50.
Yeah, 50-50, yes, but
Mr. Goel's column in Businessworld, it's called 50-50. So
okay, I'll tell you, my take on this is very simple. If Mumbai and Delhi remain red, then your economy pickup is going to be very, very slow. So, your big problem is that as long as these two big cities do not get the virus under control, the rest of the economy will not pick up. Now, which really means, and you've been asking me this question before, that all marketeers, all brands now need to figure out that if these two cities remain red, the markets that are amber and green are the ones that you now need to concentrate on, because those are the guys who can go out and buy. Because the other guys, if you can't go out and buy, there is no point, advertising to them. One additional point I'm going to make, which is not part of your question, is I think that while every business, every domain has an industry association, those industry associations now need to drop this fact that, I compete with so-and-so and so on, so and so forth, and come together to start to bring back some energy into every domain.
Okay.
When I was speaking, for example, to the, some couple of brands that sell two-wheelers. Okay. And the first thing they said, everybody is now going back to personal transport. They're all taking out their cars. I said, why don't you encourage them to start buying bikes? Yeah? Why don't you encourage them to buy two-wheelers? Especially in all your amber and green areas, they don't need cars. Maybe they require bicycles. Maybe they require two-wheelers. So why aren't you working out a strategy where you look at
so reinvention is needed.
To that market?
Reinvention is needed. Reinvention is needed. Yeah. Okay. Last word.
Puri, we started with you. We end with you. What's your assessment of the economy in the near short term?
So Anurag, India has always disappointed the optimists. I hope this time we disappoint the pessimists. I'm hopeful we will be able to do that. I would, as much as I would like to agree with my friend Srinath, I am hoping that this time, we do disappoint, the naysayers. So certainly where I am, I will put in that asterisk is that, if this pandemic does not spread, if it spreads, I think then God help us. Clearly in a city like Bombay, if it does go out of control, it'll be very tough. So keep that on one side. I would only say one thing, Anurag, to that question is that as the lockdown opens up, the confidence is going up. Clearly, we're seeing Bangalore, on residential sales is between 65% to 80% of its pre-COVID level. So quickly it has come up. There is tier 2 cities are doing, much better than tier 1 cities. So I am hoping is that over the next 60-90 days, the confidence will be better than what it is today.
Okay. Well, we'll let that be the last word. So certainly a positive note to close on today. Thanks so much to all of our panelists for joining us. Thanks to Dr. Batra.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.